Hi guys, Jason here. Welcome to the channel. Today we're looking at a 1976 JMP 2203 that Pete, who's a customer of mine, has dropped off for a full checkover, right? So we kind of had a bit of a discussion about whether we're going to keep this amp stock or mod it. Well, to begin with, I want to just do a full checkover of this thing and make sure it is stock, because one of the most common things that I see with these old Marshalls that come in is that over the years they've been modded by some tech who has taken away some of the brightness, right? The Marshalls, these old Marshalls, as we know, right? They got that Kerrang. That's the thing that kind of defines a Marshall as a Marshall. And all those old albums that we listened to in the 70s and the 80s and so on, right? You've got to have that bite and, you know, that Marshall attack. It's got to be there. So a lot of these mods that I've seen, when I open these amps up, 70s and 80s, someone's gone in there and kind of muted the thing, right? Kneecapped it, I would say, right? This one was a bit like that, right? It's only the bright cap. The bright cap had been taken out of this amp. So this clip, we're going to do an A, B, right? I'll play a bunch of AC/DC riffs. What else are you going to do with a JMP, I guess? It just felt like the right thing to do. A bunch of AC/DC riffs played through the looper on my Axe effects. It goes into the front end of the amp, okay? And in the A-B clip, I will flick between the before and after, and you can kind of hear the difference that one little cap, the bright cap, makes in this amp. In the second half of the video, I'm going to show you, you know, what I discovered about this amp on the bench. There's more to it than just a bright cap that had been removed. This is part one, and there will be a part two video for this amp because Pete has asked me to do some more changes to it, and they will be detailed in the next clip. Stick around. So before we go any further, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel, right? Click it now, subscribe, ring the bell, make sure you get notified of new content. I'm trying to get my subscribers up. Most people that watch my videos are not subscribed, so don't make that be you, subscribe now. So experience tells me that these old Marshalls, they've always been modded. It's very, very rare to find one that is completely stock. If you've got one, all right, chances are, unless you've been to a tech that you trust and that you know really knows and understands these old Marshall circuits, right, chances are something's been done to it. So I would recommend you reaching out, finding a trusted Marshall, right, someone who understands Marshalls tech, get them to have a look at it, make sure it is as per the original circuits, because you've got to have it, right? That bright cap, and so many Marshalls that have come in here for me at 70s and 80s era Marshalls have had mods done to them to take that Marshall brightness and Kerrang away. You've got to have it, right? Critical. So make sure you check it. If you've got one of these, get it checked out. All right, so let's take a look at the 76 JMP. It's a 2203, as we know, right? It looks pretty good. Pretty original. Now, look, I've had a minute or two looking at this, and here's my observations. It's obviously an original board. These pots are all original, definitely. New resistor here, so this 470k picofarad cap and the resistor has been replaced at some point in its life. Look at these old mustard caps here. So this is an old 0.68 bypass cap here. These green coupling caps here, look, I'm not sure if they're original. Look, they might be, but I just don't know. Someone in the comments maybe knows more about these than I do. I'd appreciate if you dropped a comment in there. These green caps here, I'll see if I can get a decent photo of them, put it on the video now. Moving through this amp, these sockets all look original. These definitely are. These screen resistors all look original. See the mix of resistors here. So you've got the old, the old brown carbon films here and the tan ones. So they're both, the mixture there are both actually old, resistors that Marshall used. They're two different brands. But everything looks pretty clean here. It is a 2203 front end, right? So 2K7 here with a 0.68 microfarad bypass cap, and there's a 10K cathode on the second gain stage. So it's a good old cold clipper, as we know. These Sozos are obviously not original. Okay, so they have been replaced. This is the phase inverter here. So we've got a 0.022 microfarad coupling cap as the input to the phase inverter, which is what you'd expect. That's stock. 0.1 microfarad here, which is on the other side of the phase inverter. That's obviously been replaced at some point. And we've got 0.022 microfarad couplers on the phase inverter. These bias caps here look like they've been replaced. They're not original, but you'd expect that in an amp of this age. Okay, so pretty clean. All this wiring is all original, no doubt about that. Obviously the power transformer has been replaced, which I'll flip the chassis over and I'll give you a good look at that. But you can see where the original one would have been. A few holes in the chassis there, because this new old power transformer, it's big. Man, it's a power station, that thing. This is the gain pot here, and we would expect a 1 nanofarad bright cap here, right? 1000 picofarad. That's the stock value on a 2203 or a 2204 for that matter, which they carry forward into the JCM 800s as well. And without that cap on there, we are losing or missing out on a fair amount of that Marshall bite. It's a good sounding amp, right? But it's going to sound bloody great when I get that bright cap in there. Also, original good old mustard cap on the presence here. So that's good to see. And so a lot of this amp's pretty stock. It's just had, you know, just had that cap removed, which is really kind of disappointing. So let me flip this thing over and we'll have a look at what's going on the other side of the amp. And you can probably see now, right, what this power transformer looks like. It's got no bell ends on it, right? So you can see the actual the transformer inside there. Normally, you know, you have these bell ends on here that cover the inner workings of the transformer. I will go through and check the voltages actually. I have done a preliminary test on those, but I'll actually go through and I'll show you what they are. The amp's like, she's nice and dirty in here. You could do with a little bit of a dust, which I will too. Right, things to point out. Obviously the PT has been replaced. We can see that. These filter caps here, can caps, these are all JJs. Okay, you see that there, the red writing on the black, JJs. So they are new. Well, not brand new, but they've obviously been replaced. They're not originals. These two here have a bubbly top on them, which is never a fantastic sign. But from the underside, they look clean. But nonetheless, I will measure the capacitance of these things and I will obviously check the voltages in the amp and make sure it's okay. When the amp's on idle, there is no hum, right, which is what you get from, you know, if these mains and screen supply filters were not operating, you'd have a terrible 100 or 120 hertz hum coming through the speaker, which this amp doesn't have. What it does have is a bit of mechanical hum, which is from this guy. So when the power's on and the amp's still in standby, this guy here is vibrating a bit. And you know, it's, once you start playing, you don't notice it, but just sitting there on the bench or in its cabinet at idle, it's kind of noticeable. Okay, and the other thing that I'll point out, look at these power tubes. All right, it's certainly not a matched quad, that's for sure. However, I guess whoever put these in has attempted to match them in pairs, because we've got the JJs, which are obviously newer, on the outside. So in a push-pull 100 watt amp like this, or any, you know, anything that's got a quad of power tubes that's push-pull, what's important is that from a bias perspective, these two added together need to equal these two added together, right? So you can kind of have, if you've got, you know, a matched pair and a matched pair, and, you know, let's say the bias, you know, maybe these tubes are a bit hotter than this one, and this one's hotter than this one. As long as those two match and those two match, so together they match in pairs, you're actually okay. So I will check that though, because I have no idea whether that's the case in this amp. Again, there is no, you know, bad hum at idle, but nonetheless, it's worth checking, obviously. Let's have a look at these old ones. Ooh, that is an old Mullard, or Mullard, made in Great Britain. So that is a seriously old ER34. So I'm not surprised that someone's attempted to keep it. Well, not attempted, but they have kept it. And this guy here, what do we got? It's an old Tesla. Okay. I was expecting these two to be a pair, and I mean, maybe they are from a matched pair from a bias perspective, but they're certainly not the same. They're not a matched set originally, I guess. So we'll check that, and we'll do the bias measurement on all of those using my bias probe. Okay, the amp's powered on. It's actually out of standby. ready to go, and I've got my guitar plugged in to the high input here. Now, it's going to demonstrate what difference a bright cap makes on one of these 2203 or a 2204 JMP or JCM 800 circuits. Okay, so what I've got here is good old ceramic 1 nanofarad or 1000 picofarad cap, right? And I'm just going to use got the crocodile clips, and I'm going to clip this in and out of the gain pot so you can hear the difference that it makes. Now, it will introduce a little bit of noise because it's not shielded, obviously. But we're just doing camera audio in here, and you will get the idea. So I've got all the tone controls at midday, and the presence is at midday as well. The gain pot is as it was in the opening clip. It's about 6.5 of 10. And the volume's only, it's up a little bit, but it's not too smoking loud. So that's our stock sound. Well, not stock, but that's the sound of the amp as I got it. Not terrible by any stretch, but let me clip in this bright cap, and it runs from the input of this gain to the wiper, right? So the bright cap always goes, the input, you wire it from the input to the pot to the wiper, not to ground. Okay, so now the bright cap's in there, let's have a listen. I touch it off and on. How anyone could take that out of a Marshall amp is beyond me. We're going to solder this 1 nanofarad back into this thing. I'll check obviously all the voltages in the amp, check that these power tubes are biased okay. So let's talk about the bias. As I've mentioned, we've got a bit of an odd set on these 4 power tubes, right? So I've just been through with my bias probe, and if you're wondering what I use, really simple. You can just get yourself one of these. Amazon, eBay, whatever, right? You can buy the bias probe, all in one unit with the readout, all that. Happy days, no worries there. Maybe one day I'll get one. But all I do, connect the bias probe to your meter. This is an old meter that I use just for current measurement, and it works perfectly, right? So you put the probe into the socket, you put the tube underneath it. There's a million videos, no doubt, on YouTube that shows you how to do that. So back to our odd set here. These are the bias readings at idle, right? 33 milliamps, 29, 20, 33. So the JJs at 33 and 33 are perfectly matched, right? These two guys here are not. They are 9 milliamps apart. So as I mentioned, you've got to kind of think about these in pairs. You can actually see, right? Look at the grid. This is the grid wires here that are the inputs into each power tube. They're connected, right, in pairs. 1, 2, and then the green wire here, 3, 4. This is our push-pull, right, each side. So you've got to kind of add them together. So 3329, that's 62 versus 53. Now 5 milliamp difference is matched, you know, in my book. This is what do we got here? We've got 9. Look, it's, you know, not the end of the world. It's not, but it's not perfect. I'll talk to the customer about that. We might keep it, given the vintage of these tubes, you know. The amp's been running like this, okay. As I said, there's no audible hum from an imbalance at the speaker. So, look, we might just kind of keep it as is, using my variac on the bench here. You can see, right, I'll dial the variac down, see what happens. Okay, so I'll bring it back up. Let's get to 240. And there you go, 240. Right, plate voltage, pin 3. Power tubes. Oh, let's move to DC. Pin 3. 478, right, so this has had the power transformer replaced, as we saw. But that's healthy. Yeah, that's pretty smoking for an amp of this vintage. I would say it's pretty much bang on. That's pretty cool. So there's the voltage at the screen pin. Okay, I've checked all the resistances of these screen pin resistors. They all look good. They're all fine. No worries there. So, all right, there's our plate voltage. So here's our droppers. We've got two 10K droppers here. Right, okay, so this is obviously the other side of the choke here. 476, and that will be the supply voltage to the phase inverter. 342. It's okay. Probably a little bit low for a 2203. I'll check against the old Marshall specs, but that's okay actually. Anything kind of over 330 I'm happy with. Let's move down here. So I'll just move the meter over a little bit there. So that's the phase inverter supply. First 10K dropper to the other side, 302. That's the supply onto the cathode follower, right? So if we look at the plate on the cathode follower, it's 302. Okay, and the last 10K dropper is the node, the supply node for V1. So this is these two plate resistors here, 391. And let me just show you the voltage on pin 1 of V1A, 260. That's pretty healthy. And on the other plate, V2B, 217. Okay, there we have it. So that's it for today, guys. Stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to take the 76 JMP and make some more changes to it.